Apologies. Some things stopped working and I can't fix them, so now all I have to use as assets in this video is some of my gameplay footage of just me playing MechWarrior 5 back when it first released. So, apologies, that's literally all I've got. That being said, thanks. And then on top of that, if this channel starts to grow fast and starts to get anywhere, and we can get to at least 100,000 subscribers at the end of the year, I will start to record a live action, I would say, series about, well, take your pick. Do you want Helldivers, MechWarrior, or BattleTech? Or maybe Halo? Or something else? You let me know. The condition is 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So that being said, let's step on and get to it. What are you still doing here? Why are you wasting time? You got stuff to go. Okay. Hello, folks. Today I want to talk about more of one of my favorite things ever that I love. Grunts. Yes. And I was one. Well, enough about me. Let's talk about all the rest of them, shall we? Now, today I'm going to be talking about BattleTech Infantry, inner sphere organization and structure of said infantry units, from the smallest level to the highest level, and maybe somewhere in between. That being said, let's jump in. And also a very, very strong thank you to Sarna.net, which is the absolute bastion of everything BattleTech and MechWarrior. So, you wish to know where I get a good chunk of all my stuff? It is definitely from Sarna. That being said, enough talking about the goddess of information herself. Let's jump into the grunts and infantry shit, shall we? Now, in the inner sphere, all the way even before the Starlink Defense Force and all through history, infantry has always culminated into one single type of organization and structure that always seems to be led back to. And indeed, back in the times of ancient Terra, those organizational and structural decisions have always remained roughly and mostly the same for the absolute most effective fighting forces on the planet. That being said, let's talk about them. Starting with the extra small. We're talking about the smallest organizational unit, an infantry squad. Squads are normally composed of 7 to 9 soldiers, sometimes 12 to 15 depending on the size element in the next order of organization and structure per unit. Take your pick. Including non-commissioned officers and junior non-commissioned officers. So your sergeants, your corporals, buck sergeants, staff sergeants, and the like. More often than not, anyone from a corporal to a sergeant will most likely be a team leader. And then anyone from a sergeant to a staff sergeant would be a squad leader. And a squad leader quite usually is going to be a staff sergeant unless you have a shortage of said staff sergeants due to the fact that war tends to chew through infantry just like a bear will chew through your guts. That being said, let's continue on. Squads are rarely deployed individually unless they're in some kind of special force capacity, some kind of commandos, or they're considered special weapons or special missions of some kind. Now, Quite usually, they will be operating as part of the next when it comes to the size of infantry formations, a platoon. Typically, squads are usually categorized as either maneuver or support, and maneuver squads are usually armed and provided light squad weapons like grenade launchers, machine guns, personal weaponry of some kind like rifles, or if you're doing some other kind of weird stuff, PDFs of some kind, which are personal defense weapons like your average submachine guns, machine pistols, and the such. Even in some cases, shotguns and pop weapons. Maneuver squads are typically small arms overall. Support squads generally carry the larger weapon systems, such as in your weapons squads, your heavy squads, or some capacities, your special weapons squads. And these squads generally carry things such as support lasers, SERM launchers, and mortars, heavy machine guns, the like, in order to provide the maneuver elements with fire support. Man, being a weasel, weapons squad leader for those of y'all uninitiated, being a weasel was one of the funnest times of my career. There ain't nothing like laying down thousands and thousands of rounds and thousands of charges and pounds and even tons of ordnance from your support by fire position and melting the enemy on the opposite side of the field and watching it and feeling that ever so complete and total fulfillment of existence as wiping an enemy element on the battlefield. That being said, also additional, some mechanized units make use of smaller squad sizes, due in part because they have APCs or IFVs or something, right? So you can only take as many personnel as you can fit inside the vehicle or stuff into them. As someone who's been in APCs and IFVs myself, you can stuff a lot if you're willing to take the risk of losing a lot, which we used to do on the regular. But it always paid off, and we operated smart. We took out more than they took from us. That is the measure of a victory. Anyway, mechanized squads mounted in hovercraft number only about 5 soldiers. You can stuff an additional 3 if you really want to try. While those in wheeled vehicles number 6. You can stuff in a number 3 extra if you really want to and you badly need it, like I used to. And I used to sit at the actual hatch. That way, if anything hit us from behind, I was the first one dead, and that would ensure everybody else could get out. Because as a leader, that's your goddamn job, is the morale, health, and welfare of your frickin' soldiers. Moving on. Next one in the structure of infantry when it comes to battle formations is the platoon. The platoon is the smallest unit most commonly committed to battlefields, though often it'll break into constituent squads during battle to control a smaller tactical level battle space. For most infantry, a platoon is composed of 4 squads, sometimes 5 or 6, depending on the structure and the number in your formations. 3 maneuver and 1 support, quite usually, for a total of 28, or sometimes in other cases up to 55 personnel. And yes, I've run with platoons with just that many. And it was glorious! The platoon is led by a junior commissioned officer, typically an LT or a lieutenant, fresh out of the commie-prestic frickin' academies that are all over the world, assisted by senior NCOs. That was me. They command the unit from the support squad or sometimes in between formations on the move. And they usually have their RTOs with them, which is the radio telephone operator or whoever carries the most advanced powerful communication equipment in order to keep comms up with everybody necessary in the battle space. And assumed positions normally filled in by junior NCOs sometimes if it is really necessary, but more often than not they're going to be the commander of the platoon-sized element. In some platoons, field medics take the place of one or more squad supports, and quite usually you'll have either a field medic per squad if you are able to spice it up that much, which I took every measure to completely take advantage of every single school I could send my troop to, and a lot of them could even qualify as field medics for all the training I stuffed them full of. And take the place of one or more of the squad support, or they will be embedded with the infantry squads themselves. That being said, let's push up to an additional to the platoon size element. Jump infantry platoons contain only 3 squads, for a total of 21 soldiers. You can stuff it up even higher depending on the human resources that are available at the time. And lacks a dedicated support squad, mostly because they move too fast. But if you strap stuff to them, you can probably maybe help them make up for that lacking when it comes to their personnel. In addition, mechanized platoons include additional personnel to operate their vehicles, typically for the APCs, IFVs, and they'll maybe have one of those per squad in the jump infantry platoons. That's just an addition. Moving on to the next one in the order of battle when it comes to the formations of infantry is a company. Companies consist of at least 3 platoons. At least. You can run companies with 5 platoons. And is normally led by a captain who is the commander of the said company. An attached command squad is often used to assist the commanding officer in coordinating the company, though this can vary depending on organization. And then in other cases where you're able to have even more platoons, you would then have a command platoon to assist the commander, the first sergeant, and the support staff and squad, and the command staff and squad. Now, moving on to the larger formations of infantry, we're going to the battalion level. Composed of at least 3 companies or more, if you so can pull off the numbers required. A battalion's commanded by a major or a colonel, sometimes a lieutenant colonel, depending on which, rank structure you're going with. A command platoon was standard in the SLDF, though this too varies with each military. Infantry battalions often act in support of battle mech regiments, and sometimes to help plus them up when the BattleTech MechWarriors are failing at their damn job. Moving on. Regiment. A regiment is the largest infantry formation still in use outside the Free Worlds League. Composed of 3 to 4 battalions, sometimes 6, and led by either a colonel or a general, depending on your rank structure. A command company is common to allow the commander to better direct his forces, though this varies between organizations. Some will have a company, some will have a platoon. It really depends on whom. An infantry regiment could include other support units, though in modern times usually it's integrated into a regimental combat team, and then it will explode outwards depending on the mission set of that specific unit. So you could have your heavy brigade combat teams, your armored brigade combat teams, and your light brigade combat teams as well. But all of them will fall under a regimental combat team, somewhat of a battle structure. Next, we're getting into the big boys. What do I mean by big boys? These are the units you send in when you want to destroy half a nation. And that's a brigade. You really want to stomp on some smaller enemy force? Send a brigade in to surround them and wipe them out. And that's the best way to send a message to anybody on the frickin' any of the universe. Infantry brigades were formed of 3 infantry regiments, sometimes 5 or 6, depending on the structure and the size of elements you are operating with. In addition to attached support units, such as your engineers and, your, even if you have engineers, and your mechanical support elements as well to, rebuild, repair, and send back any type of mechanized equipment necessary to keep the brigades going. That being said, and they will also contain their logistical supply elements as well, because more often than not, an infantry brigade is going to have some kind of self-contained internal and organic logistical support elements within it that could be the size of a regiment or a battalion, depending on the size of the element in total. This all depends on numbers, but when you get to this size of an infantry unit, you usually have more than enough numbers. Next, we're going to the size infantry element that is the biggest of the bigger boys, but not quite at the supersized level of infantry, and that is the division level. The largest formation used by SLDF, and even back on ancient Terra, way in the forgotten past. Infantry divisions were either foot, mechanized, or jump. Sometimes they would be all of the following combined. Each consisted of 2 infantry brigades and a 3rd battle mech brigade, as well as support units, and even would have aerial assets, such as aerospace fighter wings, fixed-wing attack aircraft, swept-wing attack aircraft, you take your pick, along with all of their RD and other fire support elements, and even having the capacity to call in orbital assets. That is at the division level. Now, to get directly into variations real fast, quick, in a snippet, here is the mentions into it. So in the Free Worlds League, unlike the rest of the states, the Free Worlds League operates 4 platoons per company, strictly as 4 companies in a battalion and 4 battalions per regiment, 4 to 5 regiments per division. Seems kind of lacking in the numbers department to me, but they do the best they can, seemingly. In the periphery, they're kind of more like the successor states. Many of the powers within the periphery follow standards that are in regards to their infantry forces that are mostly the same. However, the Marian hegemony uses different measures of organization. Foot and motorized infantry platoons are composed of 10 squads of 10 soldiers each, while jump platoons contain 5 squads of 10 soldiers each. Kind of topsy-turvy, but I'll take it. With the Taurian Concordat, these same platoons are composed of 3 squads of 10 soldiers each. Very interesting with the Taurians right there. I love my bull grunts. Especially since they beat the shit out of the SLDF and all the other Inner Sphere allies for the longest time. And they didn't have nothing special to do it with. Take that, innies. Now coming to the specialist troops. Most specialist infantry units operate in squads up to 10 soldiers, with a number per platoon varying by job descriptions. Combat engineers, mountaineers, special mission units, special task units, and the like, all of them basically covered under the umbrella of commandos, consist of 2 squads, while paratrooper platoons contain 3. Space Marines and scuba troops operate in platoons of 4 squads, with motorized scuba fielded in platoons of 2 6-man squads at the very absolute most. Depending on which house, which faction, and what, they want to do, who's doing it and why, mercenary or otherwise, this will depend greatly. There are some who can field a ridiculous number of what they call specialist troops, but they just call them that so they feel better about getting conscripted. Looking at you, you filthy Capellans! Alright, y'all. That's enough for now. This was the Inner Sphere BattleTech MechWarrior Infantry Organization. Smallest, fastest rundown I could even try to attempt. That being said, again, thank you to Sarda.net for being the literal treasure trove goddess of information herself. So, that being said, thank you very much for watching. To Commander Wolf, thank you very much for your efforts. They are appreciated, and they are very much, greatly helpful in every way you can think. If I could pin you General, I would. That being said, thank you again for saving my life. Now, on to all of the rest of you. What do you think? You let me know in the comments down below. And if you would like more content such as this, then please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And give everybody else the headache of just your regular average infantry grunt trying to explain a lot of his old job and everything he's ever done in the past throughout many careers to others who may be willing for such things. And that being said, thank you once again. And I will see y'all in the next one. Let me know what you want to see next on the comments of any video on the channel. That being said, be good. Be safe. Unless you want to be an infantry grunt like me, in which case, never be safe! And I will see y'all in the next one. I am Badger 7 Actual, the formerly homeless veteran, Blast Cap Badger, ex nihilo, nobody, out.